Welcome to the latest episode of 305 Vox Populi. We're back in Town Hall. I love being here right in Town Hall. We missed the studio at St. Thomas, but it's under construction. So appreciate you all tuning in. And with us today, we have Mariam Danes. How you doing, Mariam?
Good. How are you, Mayor?
All is good. All is good.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for taking your time because I know how busy your schedule is, right? A lot of people don't know, but you're a partner at a big, very big, powerful law firm down in downtown Miami, right? In Brickell?
In Coral Gables.
In Coral Gables,
Yep.
right? So, but I wanted to bring Mariam on specifically to tell her story and inspire those young girls to follow in her footsteps. Because I think there aren't many great examples on either sides and genders of somebody who works hard, who's ethical, who didn't have un padrino or somebody helping them along the way. Hey, you're going to do this. Somebody had to work extremely hard and to get to where they're at. Because you grew up here in Miami Lakes.
Correct.
You went to public school here.
Correct.
Where'd you go?
So I went to Miami Lakes Elementary. I did, well, it wasn't K through 8 at the time, right? So back then it was only up to 5th grade. I went a few years to Dade Christian. I graduated from Hialeah Miami Lakes, class of 2000. And then from there, I went to University of Florida.
Wow. And UF from HML
From
to UF?
HML to UF, I worked very hard. I had a scholarship. My parents did prepaid. You know, they worked very hard to give my brother and my sister and I everything they could. And, you know, it was up to us to put in the work to get there. But they sacrificed a ton for us to be able to have the prepaid. And then I was fortunate enough to have a scholarship, keep a scholarship. And my prepaid was for books and for, you know, whatever overhead you needed over and above that.
Wait, so how did you get that scholarship?
So Bright Futures, right? I think the Bright Future is still around. I had to maintain. So I graduated cum laude from high school, college, and law school. And I had to maintain, I believe it's over a 3.5 GPA. I was in student government. I played volleyball. I was very involved throughout, and through that, I was able to maintain it. Now, you can lose it when you go to school, when you go to college. If you fall below a certain GPA, you lose it. I didn't. I kept it, maintained it throughout my 4 years, and was fortunate enough to be able to benefit from the Florida Bright Future Scholarship.
Wait, so you said through high school, college, 4 years, and then your law, you were cum laude.
Correct.
It's amazing. That's really awesome. So talk to us about UF and that next step when you decided to go into law. Because you were at UF, what did you study?
So at UF, I went in as pre-med because I said, I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer. You want to be these things that you think you should be or what society tells you to be, right? You have to be a doctor or a lawyer or something, and that makes you prestigious, right? That was the mindset going in. I went in pre-med, sat in my first chemistry class, didn't understand anything. I looked at my best friend, who is now an attorney as well. I said, do you understand what he's saying? And she said, no. She said, do you know, that day, within 15 minutes, we became pre-law instead. And we worked very hard. If there's anything I could tell anybody, is just work hard. I think that's the great equalizer in the world, is hard work. Maybe someone is smarter than you. Maybe someone had more opportunities than you. Maybe someone had a better upbringing than you, but you can outwork someone. That's to me is the great equalizer. So I went to UF. I surrounded myself with an amazing group of friends that are still my dear friends to this day. And some of the best years of my life were up there at UF. And then ultimately went into law school. I went to law school at St. Thomas and graduated from there. And, the rest is history.
And I think you said you graduated high school in 2000. And let's go back 24 years.
Thanks for the reminder.
I graduated 02. All right. So we're right there. But back then, there was no school choice. There wasn't a Mater Lakes. There weren't charter schools. Charter schools did not exist. A step up for students did not exist.
Correct.
So back then, to get out of a lot of our public schools, to get to where you're at today, took a lot more effort than exists today, because back then a lot of our public schools were over capacity.
Correct.
They were not A schools.
Correct.
Full disclosure, back then a lot of our schools were failing. I remember when Rudy Crew, who did a terrible job as a superintendent, created zone schools, and HML was one of those zone schools. So you had to work that much harder than a lot of kids today. So you all are so fortunate. I'm speaking to the director, you all, because you're at a great charter school. You're at a place where your parents got to choose where you go. And that choice today exists even for private schools. You get those scholarships, regardless of income requirement. There's no more income requirements. But back then, you were forced to go to the school in your area, and those schools. I mean, how many kids were at HML back then?
Oh my gosh, there were so many. I think all of my classes were upwards of 25. I mean, there was no intimate setting. There was no less than 30 in a class. And not only that, I think what was available to parents isn't what it is today. You know, our parents worked hard, and their job was to go and provide. Their job wasn't to sit down and find us a tutor and let's get you extracurricular activities. And this is the college track. My parents were both college educated. They were able to go to college, but they were immigrants. They came here and they worked very hard and they did the best they could, and they did amazing, but it wasn't what, for example, we know today, or challenges that we face, which is admissions. What do you need? You need to be well-rounded. They didn't know that. We had to work really hard in a society that was, I think, education-wise, was much different than what the kids have today. I mean, I have two small kids, and I see the competitiveness, what's available to you, how they teach them from young to go towards a certain track. And I don't think, last night my son, who's in 6th grade, says, I want to go to UF. And I said, I don't ever think when I was in 6th grade, I thought, where do I want to go to college? It wasn't even something that was really discussed. I knew I was going to go to college, but what colleges, what opportunities, what you need to do to achieve that. At 11, I wasn't thinking that.
So you all are very blessed to be where you're at today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk about St. Thomas and when you graduated, right? Because it goes back to how we grew up, right? And a lot of people in what I do as mayor, and even in your profession, they didn't padrinos, right? They got godfathers, people that tap them, like, oye, paga. You had to work hard. So in terms of making sure that you work harder than those folks. So talk to us about your path from graduating at St. Thomas to being a partner, which is a big deal. I mean, we look at statistics and all. I mean, talk to us about that journey, because that's a huge deal. Right.
So I think in that industry, it's predominantly male, right? Especially when I came out, 15 to 20 years ago, let's say. It was very difficult. Oftentimes you're going to see, as a woman, as a female, there's some inherent belief that you're weaker or less than or less capable. And, I found that to be, some people let that make them feel smaller. It motivated me more. It made me have this grit to want to say, I'm going to show you that what you feel about me, this view that I'm somehow less than, I'm going to use that to my advantage, let you believe that, and then I'm going to crush you. And that's been my view through a lot of it, because at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. Let people think what they want. But to go from law school, I went ahead and when you're in law school, there's two prestigious things that you can get into, which is law review, which is the written form, and moot court, which is being a litigator and arguing and speaking. And I always wanted to do that. I was a great writer, but that is something that I enjoyed more. And I went to moot court, and I won the moot court competition with my partner, and I worked hard, and I went up against, who everyone thought was going to win, and my partner and I won. And in my second year of law school, or early first year, I was the only one from our level asked to argue nationwide in New York with older, they have first year law students, second year, third year. So I was asked to argue probably a year ahead than most others would have. And doing that helped me kind of motivate more, speak more, got me more exposure. And with that, both, Vice Mayor Jeffrey and I, we were asked, of all of the group of people in St. Thomas, who would they recommend to be appellate attorneys or writing, and based on our writing litigation style. And they picked both Jeffrey and I. And while we didn't ultimately go down that path, none of us became appellate attorneys, we took the opportunity and had almost an internship that we were fortunate to have with who I consider one of the best appellate attorneys, that was a public defender for Miami-Dade County. And I was able to argue 2 cases before the first DCA, prepared 2 motions, and one of the pleadings that I prepared along with my partner went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court and actually went our way at the end. By then, I was already an attorney and not in law school anymore, so I didn't argue it, but I was invited to come and sit through there. I wasn't able to go, but it was, all of those journeys, all of those bumps in the road, all of the people telling you you can't make it or pushing you. Some people, let that get in their head, and my advice would be, believe in yourself and push forward. And, I feel like you have a lot more to give than what you think, because some people go into law school with a mentality of, one way of path, others go into it knowing that either their father or their uncle or someone has a law firm already, so it doesn't matter how good they do. It was important for me, who besides my brother, who was 2 years older than me, there was no other attorney in our family. It was just us. He was the first one, and then me 2 years after. So it was really important for me to, make my own path and build up my own reputation and, show them that I was just as capable as anybody else.
So I love that quote when you said, let them think that I'm less than, that I'm going to crush them.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Now a quick stop so we can thank our sponsors.
Thank you to Miami Lakes Automall for the seed money to help our broadcast.
So what do you think? Have you ever seen an office, especially like a formal office, right? Like, I think this is your first time coming in too, some of the students. What did you think when you walked in and you saw a mural like this?
It was beautiful. I think the first thing I told you was I like what you did with the place. I think it looks beautiful. It brings it to life.
So shout out to Grisel Gajano, a school counselor during the day, an incredible artist at night.
Thank you to Enrique Santos for the equipment, taking this to the next level.
Yep. Matter Lakes Broadcasting, shout out to you all. I think it's really cool. 120 students, part of the Broadcasting Academy. Brent, Albert, you guys do a great job with them. They are the envy of Miami-Dade County in South Florida, because like when other schools see the way that they even broadcast, forget about the podcast and everything, just their sports game. It's like ESPN style. They got announcers, they got it all. So they really put in a lot of work. So shout out to you all. We appreciate Pablo Bear and the entire team. Hey, so wait. There's a controversy. I love all the pizza scene. What's your favorite? I like the Hawaiian pizza. Hector and Gloria do a fire Hawaiian pizza.
I'm traditional cheese all the way.
All right. Shout out to Hector and Gloria. Thank you guys for always giving back, always being great examples of entrepreneurs here in our community. Appreciate you guys. The Hawaiian pizza, the calzone. I know your son loves making the calzone. That calzone is fire. Oh no, the garlic rolls are fire for sure. So, talking about the journey, again, from HML to UF to graduating to working hard. Talk to us about the day that you got the call that you're going to be a partner.
So I worked at another firm, brief period of time. During your initial career, I think for a woman and a man, it's different, right? So you're getting married and you're having children, and it's just life. It's going to be you. A lot of the stuff is going to be you. In my view, if you see a female and a male in that kind of partnership position, the female worked 10 times harder. And I have spoken to many males who I respect in the industry, and they said, we know that you worked harder than we did to get to this point, because I had 2 children. I chose to, I didn't have to. I had 2 children, I had a home, I have a spouse. You are going to balance a lot more. And whether you have the most wonderful partner, because, my husband was very present, is a very involved father, you have your own guilt of, I'm never enough here and I'm never enough there, because you're being pulled in so many directions. And, I did work hard through that. I went back to work maybe at 10 weeks. There wasn't this, COVID gave us a lot back, which is we have the ability now to work from home, and you can see your child and also work. And it's a different world that didn't exist before. I had to commute from Miami Lakes to Coral Gables. I got in very late. I saw my children, left them very early, came back very late at night, and still, operated on a very high level at work because I was still responsible for tremendous responsibilities, right, that fell upon me. And again, I didn't let them feel like, oh, she had a baby, or, oh, she's nursing. Oh, well, her child's sick, she couldn't come in today. I didn't let them think that just because I had that, I wasn't still as capable as the male attorney who was single there without any kids. And in the end, I think they saw that with my success and winning and my dedication, and whether I slept 2 hours or not at all, it got done. And I think that's an inner drive that is important for people to foster, whoever you are, because then in the end, I remember them saying, hey, let's go out to lunch, and sitting down with me, and they said, we made a decision, and unanimously, we're going to name you partner. And there were 4 males, and I was not the most senior associate. There were associates there that were older than I was. And they said, well, I've been here longer and I've done this. And they said, well, at the end of the day, they made their decision, and I was unbelievably grateful. And it helped me now also handle not just, let's say, a litigation part of the law, but like more of a business aspect and a people aspect. And it's more on my plate, but I think I'm the kind of person who likes to do more than less. So I was unbelievably happy with the opportunity, and proud of myself, because I knew that was not something that, they hadn't named a partner in quite some time. And, to be the only female with them now, I was, proud of myself. And I think that's something that people don't do often, is you don't celebrate your wins, right? And I think it was important sometimes to celebrate your wins, to show people, young, other females or even other males that are there with you, to say, hey, look, hard work does pay off. And just because you don't know this person or that one, or your uncle or your father or your mother aren't these people, you can still get there. So yeah, it was a long journey, but certainly one that I was grateful for.
That is awesome. That is definitely an amazing journey. And I'm sure for especially the girls who are here and are going to be watching, and even the boys, I mean, how competitive they understand the world is. And you can make it without having that godfather that a lot of people believe.
Absolutely.
That you got to have.
Absolutely.
So I also believe that human beings, you get a glimpse of their souls when adversity hits, right? So like, I've seen human beings do amazing things when adversity hits, and I've seen human beings do really bad stuff. I mean, I'll never forget it when Hurricane Irma hit. I mean, we had staffers from the town that were supposed to be here that drove out of the area because they were scared. And I'm like, you're public service. But that showed me I can never depend on those people. And vice versa. But recently, Carlos Alvarez resigned. He getting married, moving out, doing a bunch of different stuff. And I had a hard decision to make to appoint somebody, or to nominate somebody to that position. And at the time, you were the chair of our planning and zoning board. And to me, it was a slam dunk, no brainer. 99% of our residents, slam dunk, no brainer. Unfortunately, for now many reasons that we know to date, based on the email you had sent, it wasn't confirmed. But the way that you reacted told me a lot about you, right? In terms of the class that you have, being a great example to everybody. But how, thinking back on that now, what are any thoughts you wanted to, because I could tell you the email that you shared, that I saw, that you sent to all of us, I was like just blown away by how some human beings can be very cold and calculated, right? And especially people who, if you criticize them, they're the first ones, oh my God, llorando, yet you never did that, right? You stood there, you shook everybody's hand. And I think that in itself is an example to our community, an example to our council, especially those council members that need that type of example, but more importantly to your family, all right, and to your
Right.
kids. So looking back on that day, what any thoughts today, I mean, of the process? Because
Right.
those are all steps along the way, right? Adversity, to me, they're always an opportunity as a human being. And while it's tough, right? It's an opportunity for something else, to get better, to move. It's a teaching moment. So what are those thoughts today on that process, and where you're at today on those thoughts?
Well, one thing is I'm never gonna lower myself to a standard that I don't feel like is becoming of me. And when I see anybody act in a manner that I don't think is appropriate, fair, classy, 100% genuine, I'm not going to respond in a way that I believe lowers my level. I have an example to set for my children who were sitting there. I think as professionals, as adults, as human beings, we can accept someone's choice, someone's disdain of you. Someone may not like me. But I think the way that it all went down, and it's in my email, and I know it's public record, and I just think the manner in which everything happened, knowing the conversations that I had, I just wish it was done differently. It felt after the fact that it was done with a very poignant purpose. And I think regardless of who was nominated, it was never going to be approved because they spoke both on the record and behind closed doors unbelievably positive about me. They said, no one could be better. We wish we could do this. You know, you're amazing. Please stay for 3 years, not 10 months. We want to keep you. And I think if you really felt that way about a person, if you really felt that someone was best for the town, then why not? What's the reason? And that's my view. So that was my takeaway. That's just my view from what I believe. And in the end, I can accept that. And in the end, I did decide to step away because I just felt like the manner in which my time, my family, just overall me was taken into account. It just wasn't. It just felt like it was very insignificant to whatever goal they were trying to achieve.
No, and you're right. And I think that night when I left, and it's okay, right? In terms of voting up or down, but
Right.
what's not okay is, and now that I know the whole story after the fact, what's not okay is not being upfront with people, right? And that's where it goes to, maybe we're raised different, right?
Right.
So like when people come see me and they ask me, man, I want to, like, I've had really bad people that want to run for office, and I tell them straight up, instead of playing the game, I'm like, yo, there's no chance. Like,
Right.
I'm going to be the first one campaigning right there
Right.
up again. But what I felt is that straightforwardness. So that night, my takeaway, and I don't want to get too much into, but when I saw your dad, right, and your daughter, and your dad, that's something we share. My dad had Parkinson's, your dad has Parkinson's, and how your daughter reacted, I was like, man, I can't believe that these folks will go so low instead of just being honest with somebody. Like,
Right.
it doesn't, you could have just said from the get, like, called you, and I'm going to give you an example of how I approach those types of things. So some of those same colleagues wanted to rename, and it was renamed the podium after somebody who I didn't think was deserving to rename that podium. But when the discussion came up, that individual is a senior citizen, has a family, and I didn't want to make that person feel bad. So I just said, look, let's look at something else. Highly inappropriate to rename a podium after somebody who's not deserving of that. And I was like, let's try to find another way. The council still voted, I think it was 4-3, to do it. The day that they were doing it, this lady's entire family was there, and they passed the microphone from person to person, and I was like, and it was my turn. I was like, do I just say the truth? Be like, yo, I'm like, this is super inappropriate. Like, should not be happening. That this is not a good example. Like, let's go do something else. I was like, man, we got to be human beings at the end of the day. And I was like, I said something nice about that. I was like, you know what? We got to keep, I remember when we fought corruption together, this and that, because I was like, her whole family's there. You know what I mean? Let's beyond, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think there's a certain humanity, and that showed me from some of those people that they just don't. They
Right.
lack that. And what I realized, too, one of the biggest lessons for young people from this, when you hear human beings tell you constantly, I say it how it is, I'm a good person, and they have to tell you that, I promise you it's the reverse. Like, I promise you, like, when you hear that from something, like I heard that night, no, I say how it is. Or the other one, no, porque yo soy buena persona. Cuando alguien te dice eso constantemente, somebody says it all the time, that ain't happening. So, but yeah, and you know what I mean? And we're bringing this back up because I think it becomes, for our community, a learning moment as well. Look, it is what it is. It happened.
Right.
But I think how you reacted, how your family reacted was incredible grace, incredible class. Any one of those other folks would have done the reverse. When I'll tell you, when one of the votes didn't go for them not too long ago, you had people coming up there saying disgusting, all this nasty stuff, yet you and your family were the opposite. Shook everybody's hand, gave everybody a hug, and said, you know, wish you guys the best. So I wish more people would learn from that example. So I know it's tough to relive that again, but anything else you wanted to add?
No, I mean, it's just like what I said. I can accept their voting up and down. I just think that we had 2 months to do that. And I just wish I would have known earlier. That's all. You know, it was holidays. It was all of this going on. It was time with my family that maybe could have been a little less redirected. And I can accept the voting up and down. I just wish it was handled differently. But in the end, you know, we're all going to face challenges or, what's perceived as rejection. But I think you should handle things with a certain level of decorum and grace. And, that's how my family taught me. And that's always how I'm going to be.
Kudos to you, because you've definitely taken that to another level in terms of teaching everybody. So thank you. No, because it was, and in hindsight, like, I don't want to say there's silver linings, but I think the teaching moment for our community is that, we've been so used to in government that people feel so entitled that they get mad and they say bad words and this and that. And no. So.
And remember, what I do day in and day out, what I have done, which is, my livelihood, I live in an adversarial world. I go up against an opponent who never agrees with me, right? Who we're against each other. But I can't, he can throw things at me and I can throw things at them in a manner which doesn't need to be disrespectful or I can't. If I do that in court, I'll get, sanctioned. Yep. So I can't govern myself like that. And I never will. I like to think that I hope to always be able to carry myself with some sort of class.
So now it goes back to that main point why I told you all why Miriam's probably the best example for young girls in our community. I want to hand it off to the students, to you all. I know they have some questions for you. Albert, Brent.
Okay, what do you love most about what you do?
So what I love most about being an attorney is that no day is the same. Every case is new. It's different, and you have to always learn. Right? The law changes. You have to be up to date with it. I'm a little bit of like an investigator and a researcher, and I really like to solve puzzles and stuff. So I think the fact that every day it's something new and I could solve it and I could, I can't get a case and tell my client, no, you lose. My job is to find a way to help them win. And that's what's a challenge. And you don't always have good facts and you don't always have the law on your side, but sometimes you have good facts and bad law. Sometimes you have good law and bad facts. And it allows me to be creative in the only way I know how, because I don't color, I don't cut well, I don't do any of that stuff. So this is the way that I'm creative.
It's awesome.
I have a question, but I don't know if you can disclose information. What's one of the craziest cases you?
Oof, good question.
So I can disclose it now, kind of in the general. One of the, I had an incident where I do insurance defense. I do workers' comp, right? So employers and insurance carriers, when someone's injured at work, then I defend them. And, I've been doing that this whole time with my firm, MKRS, right? And this individual had gotten so bad that he, had tried to kill himself. And, that obviously warranted an emergency. This was like in the middle of a vacation, and it was urgent, drop everything, because apparently he was somewhere in like a remote place, confirmed with the gun. There were police officers there. And I remember getting the call, having to get on with the judge. I was in Disney World with my child, and we had to just drop everything and handle it and get him the care that he needed. But that was, I don't know if it was the craziest ones I've ever had, because I've had a lot of fraud, and then you catch people on surveillance and they say, no, I can never do this. And you have them, washing the car like they said that they couldn't. But that was one of the ones that really stood out to me, because I was really like one of these, true emergencies that we don't have always, and that one was. So I think that answers.
So what made you specifically choose workers' comp law, or was there also any other type of law that you had any interest in?
So when I graduated law school, it was the recession, right? Attorneys were a dime a dozen. It was really difficult. I did appellate, and I was with the state, public defender's office, interning for criminal law, and also doing appellate. And they offered me an opportunity to do appeals. And one of the many challenges that you face out of law school is that balance between this unbelievable debt you now have from school and, wanting to do public work. And ultimately, I was faced with different opportunities, and the opportunity in workers' comp just kind of fell to me. And it was really more an opportunity for me. The deciding factor at the end of the day was more so the ability to litigate every day. Because some people will just want to write and write and write always, and some people would rather be in front of an audience and talk all day. I'm the latter. I would rather be in court every single day, or as much as I can. And as an appellate attorney, you really would do that. You'd write 80 to 90% of the time, and maybe go in front of judges like 10% of the time. So that I kind of fell into it. It wasn't something that I ever thought I would fall into, and it's very specific. It's kind of like, you could be a master at this one thing and hone in on your skill there, and that's what I chose to do.
Nice.
How do you stay today with all the new laws or any changes?
So in my firm, what we do, we make sure now that like almost every week to a month, we do a case update. So every Thursday, you're going to get new case law, and sometimes things change and sometimes they don't. But it's really important for us to be on top of all that. So you need to kind of come out with new blurbs. I sit on the board of certain other professional legal groups, and we stay up to date on that. It kind of gives us every other month an update on something that's trending, right? And once a year we go to events that it talks about, what hot topics, new case law changes. But you have to be on top of it, because if you go before the judge on bad law, it's not gonna go well for you.
What was the biggest challenge you faced?
People underestimating me. I think when you're young and you're a female and maybe you look a certain way and you're respectful and you don't come in with a certain approach, people tend to underestimate you. And like I said, I think I use that to my advantage. Let them underestimate you, because in the end, you work hard enough, you'll get them.
Do you have any sort of advice to girls our age that want to start a career that's mostly male oriented?
Do it. Expect it to be hard, but I always say, things can be tough, but you're tougher. Work hard, read, learn. Right now, the ability for the internet and AI and just all this stuff gives you so much information if you really want it, and you can learn. Look at a similar business. Look at what someone else has done. Compare, and don't copy it. Find out how to make it better. Find out how to make it yours. And I think if you always decide, I'm going to wake up and work hard and choose to make the most of the day, you're not going to fail.
One more question. So, moot court was your favorite, correct? So, I did read about how you are an alumni coach.
I was.
And you would go back and you would help out. Mm-hmm. So, what was that like?
I loved it. I loved being on the other side. I love kind of giving back. It's the reason why I wanted to give back to the town. I've lived in Miami Lakes my whole life. It gave me so much. So when you're in an opportunity when you feel like whatever you've learned you can give back, why not? And the same thing with St. Thomas. When this, the moot coach at I guess the head leader there that was kind of spearheading all of it was a professor that really mentored me, really believed in me. And, moot court also gave me a lot of tools that helped me. And I think when you're a judge, you push in a way to help people get prepared for the worst. I mean, you want to prepare for a worst case scenario the way I do. I never go in thinking I have anything in the bag. Never. I always, in my mind, everything is going to be a loss or a failure. I left every single exam saying I failed, I did terrible. And like I said, I was always cum laude, right? I was always top 10%, always. But I never believed that just because it was me, I had it in the bag. And I think it's really important to say, I'm going to help people. I'm going to prepare them. If I can help someone just a little bit, why not? And I really enjoyed doing, being an alumni coach. I did it for many years with St. Thomas, and they would go and come back to, ultimately they were coming back to the workers' comp moot court. So, obviously that was in my wheelhouse. So I was able to really help them and give them kind of some extra insight, and I really enjoyed it. No Bobcats.
One last one. We're good. All right. Sounds good. Hey, so we turn it over to you. Any questions you got? We give you 2 shots. You got a question, you can ask me a question, them a question, whatever you want.
So I ask you, right? Because I know, like me, you didn't have anything handed to you. You worked very hard. You gave a lot back, and you continue to want to give back. So what is it that motivates you to continue to give back, not only to this town, to Miami-Dade? Like, what is it that's pushing you?
I'll be honest with you. It's the faith, our faith in God, right? God gives us platforms in life that you have to share with others, that you got to uplift others, right? So I think the only time I think our Lord really gets mad at us is if we use our skills that we're given for wrong, right? So I think we're seeing that around the country with corruption and different things in cities. So that's why I fight so hard to make sure that we don't have corruption here ever again in the town of Miami Lakes. Leave certain things in place, like how we have an independent attorney, right, that oversees a lot of the stuff, and he's kind of like the canary in the coal mine, right? And it's worked. I've been mayor for 8 years, and knock on wood, he's one of the reasons. I mean, we have a great staff, but one of the reasons that we'll never see, hopefully, corruption ever in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years in Miami Lakes is because of that system where we have an independent attorney and somebody here. But I think part of that is that faith where God gives us certain abilities and we got to share with the world. So I love it, and I feel, but that's where I really feel strongly, right? So God gives us, and he also gives us one life. It's one shot. So you got to swing. So I don't want to be that guy, that God gave me. I can speak both languages, Spanish and English. I can present myself well. I know the issues, and I'm like, man, there's only one shot. There's no redos. I can't rewind life. And I'm like, you got to swing. God gives you those abilities, those doors open, those opportunities open, and you got to go. Because what you don't want to happen is that 30, 40, 50 years from now, 90 years old or 80 years old, and you're in bed and you're like, man, I wish I would have tried. I wish I would have participated. I wish I would have said something. I wish so. I'm like, yo, whatever it is, as long as my family's cool, Melissa and my kids are cool, we're gonna swing. But yeah, that's one of them. God gives us that skill set, but we also time.
Yeah, you got to make it count.
Yeah, you got to do good. You got to do good. One last question. Anything?
Okay, so I guess this one goes to you all. What do you feel like right, your community or your school, or you wish they would give you in terms of support or encouragement that you don't have, right? What do you feel like? What's something you feel like they could have given you, or an outlet you could have that would have helped you in some way?
Man, you put him on the spot.
No, it's
You
tough.
got him. You got him thinking.
But like school-wise or community?
Yeah, or maybe like, maybe if I had like a counselor to meet once a month, because you guys have a lot of pressure now. I feel like kids nowadays have a lot of pressure to do a lot, and sometimes you don't have that outlet or that someone to turn to. And I can say this, and it's cheesy, your parents, turn to them. I know you don't always want to, but they're always going to have your best interests at heart. But sometimes at certain ages you don't want to turn to them. So do you wish, or would you hope that, let's say you had a counselor or an outlet or a venue that your community could have? I know we have, events here in the town, but do you wish, or would you have hoped that maybe your school or your community gave you some sort of outlet like that?
I feel like something that the schools, at least on my time, that they should have was something like a counselor that can tell you how to get a job, what type of job should fit your...
Like your personality.
Exactly.
Like what you would be good at based on how you are. Like
not just what you will be good at, but the job that will fit the best for your age, to something that you can make, not a decent amount of money maybe, but something that is not minimum wage.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I think I'll add to it just with the fact that guidance from a younger age, because I would say like they start guiding us our senior year. I feel like if this would have started freshman year, you would see a lot better outcomes in like professions and just different things.
Or even when you're in middle school, start putting you on the track. If they would start putting you on the track from middle school to say, hey, what is it you think you want to do? Obviously, you're young. You're not going to even know, even at 18, with 100% certainty what you're going to do. But maybe to kind of give you exposure. So, this is something that interests you. Let's expose you in this way, or maybe you can figure it out. And that's something that I was wondering, I think that counseling could be helpful even at an earlier age to help you achieve the goals, not at the end of the finish line.
Yeah.
I would say, it has to do with the effect of what everybody's saying, but I would say probably have set in place like a big brother or big sister program, because I can attest to this. Growing up, I would listen to everybody else but my parents, right? So obviously I grew out of it. I eventually grew out of it, but I guess it's a lot easier having people closer to your age that have like experience, and to them give you that because of course there's kids that don't like to listen, so like another way to get across to the kids, because there's some kids that hide how they're feeling from their parents, they hide a whole bunch of stuff from their parents, so have someone else to kind of confide in, but obviously a professional.
Man, I think you got to get your own podcast. You got everybody out here thinking.
Engaged. I think I like this.
This.
I'll make it a regular next thing.
Oh no, we're calling your partners. We're gonna do a law one. Do one out of your office.
Perfect. We'll do it out of the office. We got it.
That is cool. So, Mariam, in closing, some advice, motivation, inspiration to that next Mariam Danes.
Oh gosh, I think that hard work is the key. It's the great equalizer. They can out socioeconomic status you, out gender you, out, connection you, but they can't outwork you. That grit, that fight, that desire will get you through. And when you're faced with situations where people try to take you off your path or bring you down or turn your character into a way that's not who you are and how you were raised, don't let them. Stay true to what you know, because in the end, that's the silver lining.
And there you have it. The great Mariam Danes is an incredible example to young girls in our community, really all the kids in our community. Make sure you tune in next Wednesday on Instagram, Facebook, X, forgot the other one. And YouTube. Sorry, guys. X and Twitter kind of mess me up all the time. We'll see you next week.